Welcome back to Deadlifts and Pizza podcast, where we discuss no BS fitness industry. Okay, I'm done. I made a list of things that I used to believe that I don't really believe anymore.
I
thought
love
it'd
it.
be fun to talk about. Yeah.
I want to hear it.
I don't remember which one of these has been popping up in my head lately. I don't remember which one it is. Maybe I'll remember while I'm talking about it. One of these, I've been thinking about how interesting it is, how I've evolved on these things. And there's more than just these, by the way. Like, there's definitely more things that I've evolved on. Yeah. And a lot of times, I want to put it out as a disclaimer too, it's not necessarily, like, I'm going to say it as if there's this black and white difference. I'm going to present it that way because that makes it interesting. But a lot of times it's not even necessarily like, oh, I used to think black and now I think white. It's more like, oh, I used to think black and now I see the gray. Right. So it's more like so much more nuance. It's like the more that you know, the more you realize you don't know. You know how teenagers, once they think they figured out the world, they think they know it all. And then the older you get, the more humble you get and the more you realize like how open-minded you become and stuff. It's similar. Like when you first start out training and you first learn things, you think that's the thing. And then the older you get, I feel like my answers to people are always so boring. It's like, oh, well, should I do X, Y, Z? And it's like, it depends. Like, it's like there really is no one. So a lot of these are like that.
I think you probably have more than I do because I'm so much smarter. Because
you've already known all the things forever. Right.
No, because you've been doing it longer than I have, right? I haven't been doing it very long. But a lot of my information that when I started out came from listening to Mind Pump. Like that's where most of my stuff, like in my philosophy and all of that came from. And I don't really listen to them anymore, but every once in a while I'll listen to them talk and I don't always agree with what they have to say. Yeah. So I probably have changed my mind on a lot of things. I just don't remember what they were.
Well, it's also the other thing that's different about you and me in terms of how we started is my not being a trainer or coach or any of that stuff, but just me as a person, Jaime, being interested in fitness and nutrition started in a very unhealthy place and it grew into a healthy place. But yours, I feel like, started in a healthy place. You started with an intrinsic desire to get better and stronger. And it morphed, I think, once you started learning bad information, it morphed a little weird, but then you came out of that quickly. Whereas mine started in such negativity and such toxicity that it took a lot of work to dig out of that.
And also, are you talking about things you've learned as you became a trainer, or is it like just your life over time? Because if we talk about that, then I have a lot of things because I didn't actually become a trainer until I learned the better way of doing things, which is why I wanted to do that in the first place. Right. Yeah. But there's still a lot of things that.
A little bit of both. I would say that by the time I actually used my interest in fitness and nutrition to help others and become like a trainer, I would say I was like 75% of the way there in terms of being healed and being in a good spot. But there's still that residual stuff. And if you mix that with the wrong information on the other side, like people, touting that you need to do XYZ if you want to be perfectly lean. And so when you combine a little bit of an unhealthy background with these extremes being taught on, so a little bit of both is a little bit of both. I think you'll see what I mean when I start.
Got it.
So I'm just going to go down the list in the way that I wrote them. I used to believe that weighing yourself on the scale was bad. I used to believe in like getting rid of the scale. The scale sucks. F the scale. I do not think that anymore. I actually think the opposite. I think people should weigh themselves every day. And that is a very far. What do you think about that?
I think I was always like, it's a tool. You just can't put all your eggs in one basket.
That's the thing. You've always been practical about everything.
It's just how I rolled.
Yes.
I'm very nuanced of a person.
Practical.
Like it's important. It's a tool. It can be used. You just don't want to use it the wrong way. You don't want to put all your eggs in that basket.
I have a memory of being 15 and it's crazy because that was so long ago and I was so young and it was such it's like you look back and you think, God, that's so dumb. But at the same time, like those first 20 years of your life, you'll talk to a 90-year-old on their deathbed and they'll reflect back to things that affected them from when they were a teenager, when they were a kid, right? They're so foundational. So I have a very vivid memory of being 15 and I hadn't eaten all day and I checked my weight. It was like 110, 111, 110. And then I ate a bowl of peas in the evening. I remember it was already dark and I stepped on the scale and it said 112. And I instantly regretted eating the bowl of peas. Oh. Like that's that's where I was with the scale. And so
Yeah.
my quote unquote graduation from that was F the scale. You know, I remember making, what was the thing? It was before TikTok. It was called like Lyrica or something. It was like a similar thing to
Uh,
TikTok, but I remember making something where I was like smashing the scale and like it was like, you know, and there's still definitely certain types of people and certain types of mindsets who 100% need to step away from the scale.
yeah.
But overall, like exactly like you said, it's the nuance. It is, the scale is literally just one of many tools, and it is a super easy one that lives in your house that you can step on, and it gives you a little bit of data. And as long as you have the right mindset about what that data is telling you, it can be
Yeah.
insanely useful for regulating and monitoring kind of like your fluctuations in body weight.
And I agree that doing it more often makes it okay. I see now that if I do this, sometimes my weight goes up, but it goes right back down. Like it's a good way to do it where it makes it less scary and you just use it as
Yeah.
data. Yeah.
Weighing yourself daily, I always say, like in parentheses, with coaching or with the right mindset,
Yeah.
is one of the best things to help you disconnect that emotional like
Yeah.
dysregulation that the
That should
scale
be the
brings.
goal. Yeah. Not to be get it. Yeah. Disconnect the
which
emotion to it.
which goes along with my next one. I used to believe that if you have ever had an eating disorder, if you have any kind of eating disorder or body dysmorphia history, that you shouldn't track like your macros. And I thoroughly disagree with that now, which is funny because I did have an eating disorder and I did have body dysmorphia. I did have all of that stuff. And I'm very aware of how tracking actually helped me. But yet I still would buy into when people would say that. I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I wonder why it worked for me. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend that to anybody else. But the reality is, when I really dissect why it worked for me in the similar way that the scale did. It's because food was always so emotional to me. It was always so tied into all of that. And tracking, yes, of course, you can track just to, you know, it can be another form of yo-yo dieting and another form of restriction. But when I actually combined that with nutritional knowledge and started looking at like the fiber and the vitamin content, and I started understanding macros and I combined that with tracking, it helped disconnect that emotional, yeah, like dysregulation around food. It helped see it more scientifically and practically. So tracking for me actually helped me come out of that because it like made food more scientific and less emotional.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like another example where that would be the thing you would do is just avoid it altogether. I'm thinking of like tracking expenses, right? Let's say you were
Yeah.
somebody who's just like afraid of losing all your money, so you don't spend any money because that would be like this similar to being having an eating disorder, I guess, in
Mm-hmm.
that the other direction where you spend too much, right? And tracking it would just give you more concrete numbers that like, oh, you're okay. Like, I don't know, like, oh,
Yeah.
you ate this amount and you're fine.
Yeah.
You spent this amount and nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think it would be a negative to track.
Definitely. Or like I'll say, I like that analogy because it's like if you know that you have this really bad Starbucks habit and you're going to Starbucks like every day and getting a $5 to $6 drink, and all of a sudden you realize your finances are out of control. And instead of tracking, you're like, oh my God, I need to stop. It's the Starbucks. I spend so much money on Starbucks. So all of a sudden you become almost fearful of going to, nope, I don't do that anymore. All my money's going to Starbucks. But you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly thinking about Starbucks because you wish you could go there, but you can't.
Yeah.
The reality is, if you actually just tracked your finances, you'd realize that you could probably still go to Starbucks like 1 to 2 times a week if you wanted to. And you could cut some things from other areas to make maybe Starbucks fit in 3 times a week because it turns out you're also buying a lot on Amazon you don't need. Like you could much more
Yeah.
practically fit that into your life in a healthy way instead of just
Yeah.
cutting out this entire thing that you love and brings you joy.
Yeah. The
It's
big
very
thing with
similar.
both of these is take the emotion out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is data.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything is data, and you don't need to go to like these flip-flop extremes. And sometimes you need
No.
periods of that, and that's where I would say that's where it makes sense. Like if somebody who is, you know, they eat a bowl of peas and their scale weight goes up and they're freaking out, like maybe we need to remove that for a period of time, but it's not a forever thing. Like
Yeah.
let's reintroduce it and do it a little bit more practically.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my next one is, well, let's keep in the line of tracking. I used to think that having your kids or my kids seeing me track on a scale or track with an app was bad. I never wanted them to see me do it and I would try to hide it.
Hmm.
And I don't think that anymore. I actually think it's relatively good for kids to see that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I can see that. Like, I think I have a son. It's a little different. And my daughter is oblivious, so there's nothing like, so I didn't have to like think about that as much, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if I did have a daughter who was not oblivious, that that would definitely be something I would be thinking about. And is it bad for her to see me do this? Like, just, yeah.
Now, I don't like when I'm in intense fat loss phases and I'm tracking everything really diligently. I don't know. I think that I think that that can transform. I didn't want them, like, I still kind of feel like that might, I don't want them to see me doing it all the time. You know what I mean? Or being
Mm-hmm.
like obsessive about it. But even that, I feel like can graduate depending on your kid, depending on their age. Because like I think my son, I can probably have fat loss conversations a little bit differently than I can with my daughter, even though they're similar ages. They have different influences and all these things. So I think it depends on the kid, it depends on their stage, it depends on all these things. But I don't think it's just inherently bad. And in fact, when I started changing my language about it, depending on the season I'm in, I'll just tell my kids, most of the time I'm saying I'm making sure that I'm getting enough. Because they'll say, oh, why are you doing that? It's like, well, I'm making sure that I'm getting enough. I know that I need a certain amount of calories per day to be able to see the progress I want in the gym. I know I need a certain amount of fiber. I know I need a certain amount of protein. And so when I weigh my food, I can know like what those numbers are, and I could, you know, be more likely to hit my goals. So that's how I
Yeah.
phrase it. And I think that that's a really healthy thing. And I think that's, again, it's where like the nuance and the balance, because if I'm doing it all the time obsessively, obviously that might be sending the wrong message. But I don't think it's bad inherently for them to see you tracking your food.
No, it's funny. The other day, I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago. I don't know, I was talking about calories or something, and I was choosing something because it was lower calories or something, or it was less calories. And Caleb was confused, and he was like, "Why? Why would you want it to be less calories? Don't we want it to be more calories?" Because I'm always pushing calories on him because he doesn't eat enough. So it's kind of funny because he doesn't even notice, you know, if I'm doing that or not. I'm like, I don't know. It is kind of funny.
Yeah, my daughter's that's the other thing too, is that they're going to start hearing about these things, especially if you have a daughter. They're going to be hearing about these things. So the more often that you can present it in maybe like a healthy way, because I know my daughter's starting to say things and it's like, where does that come from? And it's obviously the influence outside, you know, of your home, but, you know, picking up on the word calories and like, oh, somebody was, you know, saying that this is less calories, so that's better for you. Is that true? And I can be like, well, yes and no, because then there's sometimes that I'll pick a lower calorie food, or sometimes I'll look at something and say that's a lot of calories, but it's not that it's a lot of calories, it's a lot of calories for what you're getting. Like you look at a can of Sprite, that's a lot of calories considering you're getting 0 nutrition and 40 grams of sugar, right? So it's like thinking about what are those calories giving you? If they're giving you nothing, then you might want to keep them a little lower. If they're giving you something, maybe it's fine, you know, but there's a lot of nuance in there, but they're coming home with their own information. So if I can like counterbalance that with the nuance, you know?
Yeah, avoiding the topic altogether is probably the wrong thing.
Yeah.
When we were kids, I remember my mom doing like exercise videos and constantly trying to lose weight and stuff like that. And I don't know if that had an influence on me or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if it actually affected me.
Yeah.
I think seeing her exercise is like a positive thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely got a positive influence of my mom in terms of exercise. Like she was always very active, and that I wanted to be active and stuff. But she also, I think I've told you this before, my mom is just like stunningly gorgeous, but she was always picking herself apart in the mirror. So I have memories of walking by her and seeing her looking at herself in the mirror and like stopping in my tracks and admiring and being like, God, I hope I look like that one day. And she didn't know that I was thinking that. And then she looked up at me and was like, God, I'm so fat right here. And it was like the message that it would send me was like, oh, crap, you know?
It's still not good enough.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I'll say things sometimes, but I'm joking, but I'll say something like, I don't know, degrading to myself. And Caleb will always be like, no, that's not true, Mom. That's not true. Like, he's just so sweet. It's so adorable.
Well, I do the opposite. My kids and I do a lot of like your face jokes. So we'll do it like, she'll just be like, man, that pasta's, you know, really red. And I'll be like, your face is really red. Like,
I do that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Constantly. So she said something about something being crazy. And she said, your face is crazy. And I went, yeah, crazy, beautiful. Like, so like giving myself exaggerated compliments. I do that a lot. Yeah. You wish that your mom, like that woman wishes she looked good as your mom or something. I don't know. I do crap like that all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's keep on the tracking. I have a couple more tracking things.
Okay.
I used to tell my clients, I'm so sorry if this was you. I used to tell my clients to track like every veggie. Like
Okay.
when I gave client, I'd be like, okay, like 10 grams of tomatoes in your salad, like, track
Oh,
every
like
single thing.
actually like measure the
Well,
vegetables?
yeah, so I would tell people to measure their vegetables. Yeah, you need to track everything. And they'd be like, what about like spinach in my salad? Like, yeah, just throw a handful in there and just, it's probably low anyway, but you need to track it. Or like, I remember one client I had very early on, she felt like she needed a meal. Like, I need to know what this looks like to be able to eat. Like, I have no idea what you mean. So I remember creating like a meal plan for her based off the meals that she ate. Granted, this was like 10 years ago, but based off the meals that she ate, and she liked to have like a garden salad with dinner, so I put in like amounts, and I put in like 10 to 15 grams tomatoes, such and such grams, but I remember that 10 to 15 grams tomatoes. And then I was thinking I was giving her like a guideline, like I don't know, if we're weighing everything, then this is about what it'll look like. But then like a couple weeks later, she came to me and was like, I can't do this anymore. Restricting myself to like 15 grams of tomatoes is driving me. And I was like, oh no, you don't really have to do that. You can have more. I was just trying to give you, but the idea that you have to like track, everything.
Wow.
And now I feel like I'm kind of the opposite end. Like, yeah, if you're in a really restrictive fat loss phase, it might be good to throw in a couple of amounts of the stuff you're eating, but it doesn't, like, I'll put like a handful of spinach or 1 cup of spinach. Like, I'll put it in there just to get some numbers to make it a little bit more balanced, but I don't track those things.
Like you don't track your vegetables at all?
Well, it
Or
depends
do
on
you
the
mean like you
vegetable.
don't weigh it? Or just you don't track?
Depends. Sometimes I won't track it if I know that it's like 7 calories worth of spinach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most often it's in the middle. I'll track it, but I won't weigh it. And then obviously if it's like a
It's
root
so
vegetable or
funny.
something.
Okay, so this is funny because I do, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
weigh them. It's not like I'm getting the exact amounts, but I 100% track my vegetables. Do you know why?
Because you want to see the nutrients that
Because
it
I want
gives
to
you.
see the
Yep.
nutrients. So I care more about the nutrients than I do the actual macros of the whatever vegetable I'm tracking. So I'll put in there because I'm like, I want to hit my thiamine for the
Yeah.
day, you know?
Dork. Well, that's why I do it now. Like, I'll find, like, if I'm tracking in a fat loss phase, I'm kind of like skipping these things that I know were low calorie, but then I'll go look at my nutrients. I'm like, holy crap, I'm really low on vitamin C.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, hold on, let me go. I had a bunch of kale today. Let me go put that in. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely track them more to see that. But in terms of like calories, I used to be like, track everything, and now it's like you really don't.
It's
And
not that big of a deal.
even to the point where if you're not tracking your vegetables at all, let's say you're not tracking them at all, but logically the amount of vegetables you're eating in a day works out to like 150 calories, then if you're not seeing progress, just lower your total calories that you're aiming for by about 100 and still continue to not track your vegetables. Because I feel like that would be better than constantly focusing on like weighing every single vegetable that you eat.
Yeah. I mean, there's just the amount of people that get fat from eating too many vegetables. It's just like rampant, right?
Oh,
Like I
right.
feel
Yeah.
like it's a problem. And
Totally. Banana obesity is like a
banana
serious
obesity.
problem right now. I had my daughter, what did she say? I don't think it was that bad. I think it went in my head, but I offered her a banana when she got home from school, and she goes, Mommy, did you know that bananas have as much sugar as, I don't know, she related it to some unhealthy food? And I was like, where'd you hear that? And she said, Mr. Mendez, like one of her teachers in school. I was like, did Mr. Mendez also compare the nutrients in a banana compared to the nutrients in a blah, blah, blah? I was like, it's not
Yeah.
purely about the sugar. We've talked about this. Like, it's not sugar by itself that is inherently bad.
It also has fiber and vitamin B6 and potassium.
Yep.
Those things are important.
Yep.
Important.
Important.
I asked Wayne to say important, and he says it the same way I do. It's an upstate
Important.
New York thing. Important.
Okay, if I were to randomly say the word important, I do it too, but I put a little bit more of a, like I close my mouth more.
Uh-huh.
Your mouth stays open. You're like important. I think my mouth mostly closes. Important.
I think it's important.
Important. I do it too, but my mouth closes. Important. Yeah.
I think I close my mouth. Anyway, go ahead.
No, you're like this. Important.
No, I don't. Important.
Yeah, see?
It closes.
Barely. Your jaw's like hanging wide open. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Again, aligning with tracking. I used to think that like everybody needs to track. It's like the only thing. And if you couldn't track, and if you weren't going to track, then, then that you just need to learn how to track, or else you're never going to get control of your nutrition. I still believe that that everybody should track. Like, I still think it's very beneficial. And if you are able to do it, you should do it. I always recommend it. But you can also be on track with your nutrition and balance your nutrition and lose weight and get healthier and all that stuff without tracking. There are other ways to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree. just eating we talk about all the time, just eating whole foods and
Yeah.
making sure you eat a good chunk of protein with your 3 meals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still think you should, because I think it's good data. I always like
I
people
do,
to see
yeah.
that information. But
And I think it's a good idea to weigh things at least once, so you
Mhm.
know what 4 ounces of chicken looks like, or 6 ounces, whatever you're aiming for.
I would say and this is relatively, new in my whatever mindset of, but I would say own a scale. Everybody should own a scale.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't care if you track or not, but you don't really know what a portion of protein looks like until you weigh it out on a scale and you see that. They say
Yeah.
6 ounces of chicken. You don't actually know what that looks like.
No.
Weigh it out and learn those
Yeah.
things. That's going to help you more than tracking it in an app will.
Mm-hmm.
You'll like this one. I used to think there were no good and bad foods. You couldn't apply morality to foods.
I think I'm the one who changed your mind
And
on that.
now I believe that foods can be good and bad.
I agree with this one.
I've evolved a lot on this in a very back and forth fashion too. I wouldn't even say it's been linear. I would say maybe even talk to me in a year and I might feel differently. But where I'm at now, and what's funny is, because a lot of people, like having kids, they go backwards on this. Like they don't want to teach their kids that there's good and bad foods, to the point where there's people that are like, no, put the cake on the plate with the dinner because it should be equal and they can eat them in whatever order they want. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. That's not. Like, I don't want my kids to tie their morality and their emotions to food, but there are absolutely foods that do nothing for your body, and you need to fill up with the foods that do good stuff for your body. And I'm having to tell my kids, like, that is not good for your body. Like, you need to stop eating that stuff, and you need to eat this stuff first.
Agree. And especially on the good side, there's definitely foods that are good. And bad, and like you said, it's not a morality thing. It's not like you're bad when you eat it. It's not anything like that. It's more like, okay, what if you have gut issues and you're eating foods that are destroying your gut even further, or cause a lot of inflammation in your body, and they're like hurting your health? Like, those are bad foods. They're doing something bad to you.
Right.
Yeah, it's just that, and I get it, because I think, like, if you, like, for certain people with, like, eating disorders or certain things like that, it could get too extreme.
Yeah.
But we swung too far the other way.
Exactly. That's where, again, it's like one of those things where it's like, maybe you need to remove this language for a temporary period of time so that you can get correct in your mind.
Yeah.
But then we can reintroduce it, because I actually think it's fine to tell my kids, like, I don't know, it's kind of weird too, because like, oh, Cheetos, they're bad for you. Well, if you only have a small amount once a week, is that bad for you, or is it just kind of neutral? It's probably fine. It's probably fine. If you eat a lot of that constantly mixed with the Sprite and then the gummies earlier, like, the accumulation of that is literally bad for you. Like, that's bad for your body. And we have evidence of it everywhere you look. When you walk down the street, we have evidence of how bad that those things are for your body in excess.
The thing I always do, like, soda.
Oh my God. So
drinking soda instead of water, especially, sugar, or ones with a lot of sugar.
I have a question for you. I don't think I've asked you this question yet, and I think I meant to.
Okay.
For a child who likes to drink soda, if you had to choose between that child, and let's say this child drinks soda once or twice a week, so it's a fairly regular amount of soda, would you prefer them regularly drink regular sugar, full sugar soda, or diet soda?
Diet.
Did we talk about this?
No.
I had to go down the rabbit hole a little bit to make sure that I agreed with my opinion, because my opinion was that as well. But I was like, let me make sure this is backed by research, because there's so many people out there that's just like, sugar, just have the real thing. It's nothing wrong with a little bit of sugar sometimes. I'm like, do you know how much sugar is in a can of soda? It's literally like 40 grams.
What I'm thinking of is teeth. Like, how bad must that be for your teeth?
Yep.
Drinking
that was another thing
soda.
that sealed it for me. So when I was talking to my husband about this, because my son does like to have like a Sprite like once a week, and the only reason we even have it in our house is because we had a party recently and we got the mini cans, and I came down, I was like, if we're gonna, and then we have leftovers, and I'm not just gonna dump them, we keep them, and then he knows that they're there, so like on the weekends we're like, okay, you can have one. If we're gonna have it in the house, it needs to be diet, otherwise I'm gonna dump it down the drain. And I had to get I was like, this is my line, and I had to make sure I had the research to back it up. But one, the amount of research we have that shows the negative impacts of a large amount of sugar on the body, right, is overwhelming compared to the chemicals of, artificial sweeteners. Yeah. But then the teeth thing is what really got me too, because I was like, the wearing down on your enamel, that those sugars do on, plus the bubbly when you combine them, is really bad. So we have the mini cans of like Sprite Zero, and he can have them like once a week. But then I don't feel as bad, you know? All right, next one. I'm going to say this one in a very stark way, but I don't actually, you know, we'll talk about the nuance. I used to believe in balance, and now I say that that's bullshit.
I think I know where you're going. I know where you're going. Yeah.
So obviously balance exists. You have to have balance, but my idea of what balance was more skewed than what it really should be for the kind of outcomes most people want. You think a lot of people that start off and they want balance so bad are usually using that idea of balance, misusing it. Really, they're misusing the idea of balance in order to allow themselves to have more than what they really should have. Balance should really be more like 80 to 90% the quote unquote good right track, and like 10 to 20% of like the things that you want. But I think a lot of people, it's more like 70-30. You know, they clean up 70% or they clean up 60%, and it's not enough. It's not enough to not only see the things you want aesthetically. You might see a little bit, depending on how off track you are. You might see a little bit of progress, but it's not enough for the health outcomes you want. It's not enough for the longevity. It's not enough for the aesthetics that you want. You really need a total lifestyle overhaul, and balance should be a very small piece of that.
I also believe that you have to earn balance. So in the beginning, you might have to do more than you have to do later. So in other words, like, all right, if you're 50 pounds overweight, balance is going to be a little bit harder because you're going to have to lose that 50 extra pounds, right? But once you lose it, you can have a little bit more balance. So when you're at like a maintenance level, you're allowed to have more balance too. To get to your goals, you need less balance. But when you're there, balance is a lot. The same thing with like building muscle. Like it's so much easier to maintain the muscle that you've built than it is to have built it in the first place. So in the beginning, you might have to do a little bit more to build the muscle. But then once you've earned that, you get to a place where like, you know, it's a lot easier to maintain. And yeah, so you've kind of earned that balance. You also have to earn it by like, it's important to every time I say it now, it's like messes with, like I always hear it now, to do some of those hard things up front and learn what it takes to get to certain, you know, get certain things, right? Yeah,
totally.
Do you agree with that?
I used to believe that you could eat the same things, you just needed to adjust your portion sizes. So again, I remember talking to a client very early on and then being like, I just need to stop eating the things I'm eating and I need to eat different things. And I was like, well, what are you eating? And she was like, well, like I love to have spaghetti and I love to have lasagna, like those types of things. And I was like, well, you don't need to cut those out. You just need to have like smaller amounts. You just need to be aware of the portion you're eating. Now, of course, that's partially true, but I also don't like, I think there is a lot of overhaul that people need to do. I think you do need to actually, because for example, this person was eating white pasta, ground beef, you know, Prego sauce or whatever, and that would be there. So we still eat spaghetti very regularly, but we eat like whole grain or the Barilla Protein Plus pasta. I measure out a cup of it. I know exactly the sauce that I'm having, and we use either lean ground beef or like a leaner ground turkey, and then we fill the rest in with vegetables, right? So you can still have spaghetti. It is just adjusting the portion sizes, but a lot of people need to completely adjust how they're eating. It's kind of like earning it again.
Yeah.
It's a different way of like thinking about, you got to earn the ability to eat spaghetti because you need to relearn like all these other foods and like ways of eating.
There was this one client whose diet was just not good. It was like no vegetable in sight, no like lots of soda and sugar and everything processed, no like home cooked meals. It was just a bunch of crap, right? And normally I would say for most people, we preach balance, right? Yeah. But in this case, it was like, I think you need to just not eat any of that for a period of time.
Starving or...
Yeah, and reset your palate, because if you let this stuff in, you're just like, it was an insane amount. So I think sometimes there's even benefits to doing like a couple of weeks where you quote unquote detox, but your detox is just you eating all whole foods for a couple of weeks and cut out all that crap. And then you can slowly introduce it in small amounts where you're doing the 80-20.
The speed at which your palate adjusts to what you give it and craves that is crazy. And it obviously happens quicker with like high sugar, high fat, high salt foods. So like this time of year, this always happens to me, where the more cookies come into the house and the more desserts people are dropping off and we're baking, and the more I'm eating it. One day of like kind of overeating cookie dough when I'm baking cookies, the next morning, the only thing I want in the morning is a cookie. And
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Eggs taste like crap. Like, what? I don't even want to finish this, but I'm hungry and I just want a cookie. It's crazy. And then I find it literally will take 1 or 2 days of eating that way to flip my palate to want that stuff. And it takes about 2 weeks to flip it back, which sucks. So those 2 weeks I don't enjoy eating because I'm like forcing myself.
I think it's, for me, it depends on how long I've been eating that way.
That's if I get too far gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it could sometimes only be like 3 days and I'm good. And then I eat a carrot and I'm like, oh, wow, this tastes amazing.
So sweet. It's like candy.
I taste the sugar. What I ate the other day that I was like, wow, because I had the flu and I couldn't really eat anything. And I ate something and I was like, wow, this is like so flavorful. I don't remember what it was. But yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
The last one is, you don't need cardio. I used to buy
this one I have changed on. I agree with you. Yeah. This is one that I have.
And this is where a lot of these, and if you actually go back and evaluate this list, a lot of these have to do with where you're coming up, like what's the reason for it. So it shows that like it used to be much more focused on aesthetics and fitness and nutrition in terms of aesthetics.
Yes.
And when you mature and you get more educated and you realize, blah, 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 you get away from that and you learn all the other reasons you should eat well and exercise, those become obsolete and nonsensical, right? And cardio is one of them. Sure.
Yeah.
If you only thing you care about is aesthetics and how you look, no, you don't need to do cardio. You can get the fat loss that you want from adjusting your nutrition, and you can build muscle in the gym, and you can, do all of those things. If you care about other things, then you should be doing cardio. In fact, you need to be doing, I even value I value high intensity cardio way more as well.
Yeah, that was one I changed on too, because I would, if people were doing cardio, it would be zone 2. I would rarely ever prescribe HIIT to somebody or anything like that unless they were specifically asked for it for a specific reason. And now I think, and it's one of those things, the same thing where the pendulum is swung too far in the one direction. So for a while, do you remember everything was HIIT everything and HIIT classes and everything? So it kind of like was what's the word? I don't know. But it swung too far in the other direction where it was like, no, you're stressing yourselves out. Adrenal fatigue.
Recover. Yeah. Women can't recover from this. You're destroying your hormones.
Yeah. No, that's not true. I mean, if you do it every single day, sure. But yeah, I think HIIT is very beneficial.
Yep. The last thing isn't on my list, but it made me think of it when you were talking about earning balance. What do you think of the idea of people say earn your carbs? There's a couple of fitness people out there that kind of do this. They say earn your carbs, and part of it is like you just eat higher. It's not as like extreme, right? So on the days you work out, you have higher carbs. The days you don't work out, you have lower carbs. But also stacking their carbs around their workouts. Keeping carbs relatively low, and then when you work out, kind of stacking the carbs around them. But this earn your carbs mentality. What do you think of that?
I think you need to eat more carbs on the days you work out and less on other days. Like I don't think you need to be like that, but I do think you need to earn your carbs. I do think that you don't burn them if you're not using them, and you do need to earn them. It's just that you don't need to run on the treadmill to burn off all the food. Like you don't need to punish yourself because you ate too much. But if you like food and you enjoy those carbs, it's science that it's like the science doesn't care about your feelings thing, where if you don't need them and you're overeating them, it's not beneficial for you. So it is. Yeah, you do need to earn your carbs.
Yeah, and fiber comes from carbs. So like if you're going to eat carbohydrate sources, I think it should always be high fiber carb sources. And so this is where it's like the nuance, right? Like if you're an inactive sedentary person, you need to be eating enough carbohydrates to get enough fiber. But that can actually still be a relatively low amount to get enough fiber for eating the right things. I really don't think if you're a sedentary person, I kind of feel, this is kind of stark to say, if you're a very sedentary person, I don't think you should be eating white rice. I don't think you should be eating white bread. I think you need protein and you need produce and because your energy, you're not burning much. So you can't intake much in order to maintain or lose. And every one of those calories has to make sure it comes with like packaged of nutrients, that's doing what your body needs. You don't have room for those things. If you exercise and become more, then you expand that room, and carbohydrates are your body's energy source. That's why they're non-essential, quote unquote, because you can live without them, right? Your body has other ways of getting, creating what it needs or whatever. So yeah, I kind of think of it as that, like the more active you are, the more you can include these things. You have so much room. Your targets are so much higher.
Yes, I agree. I think like if you're very sedentary, like 80 grams of carbs, you could probably get by because you don't really need more than that. Whereas if you're working out, it could be 200 grams of carbs. There's a big difference.
It's a big difference. And you can get those 80 grams of carbs. It's really hard to get the fiber you need without carbohydrates. So if you're eating lower carb because you're lower calorie, and a bigger part of that calorie has to come from protein and all these like things that happen, then your carbs they need to be high fiber sources, because otherwise you won't get the fiber you need. It needs to be fruit, it needs to be vegetables and like beans, and like then you're done. Like there's really no room for the white rice and stuff. And if you are doing the white rice, it's not that it's bad, it's not that you're bad, it's not whatever, it's that you're just not going to be able to get the nutrients you need in. Yeah,
that's not very nutrient dense food.
Not at all. No. Yeah, very, very little. Again, doesn't mean it's bad. You just don't have a lot of room.
For the carbs in general, it doesn't really matter where they come from, but the package is going to have a lot of other things with it. So does it come with fiber? Does it come with other nutrients? You're going to get the same carbs from rice as you would an apple. It's just the apple also has fiber.
Exactly. And other nutrients that you need.
Yeah.
Cool. Good pod. Anything you want to add before we round it up?
No, but you did remind me of some, like the cardio thing. That's definitely when I changed on. I don't know. It's probably ones I have, but I can't really think of them. But yeah, no, I liked it.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thanks for listening. If you have any you want to add, maybe things that you used to believe that now you don't anymore, you've been enlightened, let us know in the comments below. Leave us a 5-star review. We'd appreciate it so much. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.